This is Tim.
I'm Mulele.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim with Mulele in Tokyo. This is the podcast where creators send us their comics and we critique them. We'll be very honest about our feelings, but the purpose is to give constructive criticism to help you make your comic better. And here we are back on Thursdays, at least temporarily, because there's so much deconstructing comics content right now. I'm just going back weekly DCP. Now we're recording this actually right before Mulele leaves for Toronto Comics Art Festival. But you'll be hearing this, I think, so it'll be the 17th, and I think it'll be like as you're like getting on the plane to come back. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what are you going to do after TCAF?
Well, my sister lives in Chicago, so I'm going to go see her like maybe the next day or the day after that. I originally had this plan that I was going to do some sort of wild tour across Canada, visiting comic shops, and eventually get to VanCaf, which I originally registered for. And then I realized that it's an incredible amount of money for an artist who's basically unknown in those areas. And someone was telling me that there isn't much between Toronto and Vancouver anyway, so it wouldn't be worth it. And then I remembered that, yeah, I am kind of poor, so I can't quite afford that. So decided to go to Toronto Comic Arts Festival and maybe look at the local flavor and eat some poutine and go home. So that's basically it. But I mean, that's the thing. I would like to meet a lot of people, talk to a lot of people, see if I can make some new fans or some new friends, some possible collaborators on any future projects. But just kind of to see what's out there, because this is my first con outside of Japan that I'm going to table. So for me, it's completely new experience. And I really have no idea what to expect. I mean, I've been to cons in the States, like when I lived there, and also I've been to San Diego a couple of times. But
and New York, right?
I've also been to New York, yeah. But wandering around those cons and just kind of looking at other people do tables is not the same thing. I did have a plan to go to San Diego this year, but everybody said no. That's not a very good con to go table at unless you're like mid-level career.
Yeah, it's gotten to that point.
Yeah. And, I've got no connection to a comic book company or to movies or to any of that stuff. So basically having, 200,000 people a day walk by my table and buy nothing is not what I want. So decided to go for a smaller con that is focused only on comics.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, well, let's dig into the comics here. 2 as usual. We have to do 2 an episode now to kind of keep up with the pace of submissions. This one is called Fallen Ones by Varga, Balint, Bank, and Vadas Mate. I don't know if I pronounced those names correctly. The email came from someone named Zofia, that's Zsofia, who apparently, I don't know what I assume it's a woman, I'm not sure. I don't know what her relationship is to the project, but part of what she wrote was that this series is set in a dark fantasy universe, the Unseen Domains, in an alternative 17th century. And about us, we are a small team from Europe, and we're the creators of the Unseen Domains dark fantasy universe. So, yeah. Now, this there on the website at unseendomains.com, which I took to mean unseen web domains, but I guess that's not what it means.
That's cute. Yeah.
So there are 4 issues on the website. I actually read all 4 of them. They are not very long. The first one is like 8 pages. I think the other's a little longer, but kind of a bloody story. There's a lot of people getting stabbed and their limbs getting cut off and whatever. In the first issue, we're introduced to a guy who's basically a werewolf. And I don't know, that issue kind of raises a lot more questions than it answers, and I didn't see answers in the other issues either, but basically he's a werewolf and people are afraid of him. Then issue 2, the kind of main character is this woman who's an assassin, and she follows her target into the city where the werewolf happens to be, and saves him from a public flogging and recruits him to help her. Then in the third issue, another character comes in, and his story intertwines with the first 2. Issue 4 does not have a 4th character. It's like following those first 3. But I kind of liked how those 3 kind of came in one by one and intertwined. I thought that was... I mean, it's far from a perfect comic, but I liked that aspect of it. And the art is pretty good. There were a few things here and there where I thought it could have been better, but and the coloring I liked quite a bit. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. The coloring is lovely. The artwork has a couple of points here and there where I think, okay, that face could have been redrawn a little bit, but I've got the same thing in my own artwork, so I can't really talk shit here. But I really liked the way the story unfolded, and when it got to the end of the first issue, I was like, oh shit, yeah, I have to read more, and immediately went to the second issue. I have no idea how many pages there are in this, because the pages run vertically.
Yeah, you just scroll through it.
Yeah, and so I'm kind of lost for page count, but yeah, every time I came to the end, I wanted to read the next one. Mm-hmm. And because it's readily available, I would just do so. Although, because of time constraints, I didn't quite get to the end. I got to the beginning of the third issue before we started recording this. But yeah, it's actually quite well told. And the style is just to gather the team, I guess. Mm-hmm. But each of the books seems to add one member and tell their backstory and motivations to join together, which I thought was really, really well done. And also the questions that are raised in the first issue, I thought were good. They weren't like, okay, this is not going to be answered anytime soon. It felt more like a twist on an old theme or an old story idea. And so a man is escaping some werewolves or some wolves, I guess. I don't know exactly. And he runs into this town. Then they sew him up and help him heal, and he's got this mark on his neck, and he's trying to kind of like hide the mark on his neck, but someone calls him out, and it turns out that she has the same mark, and she turns into a werewolf and tries to kill him. Then he turns into a werewolf and winds up killing her. And then he runs out into the town and says, no, I've killed the monster. The monster is dead. Please don't worry. I'm not trying to hurt you. And then the entire town turns into monsters. And it just seemed for me to be kind of a surprising twist on surprising twist. And I liked all of that stuff. And it comes to the end of the first issue there. And starting in another place and with another character is sometimes a little bit off-putting, but it tied back into the first story when the assassin arrives at the town and it picks up where the other story left off.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt it was well paced, well plotted, and well told. I think the artwork and the I should say the inker and the penciler, inker, and colorist work together quite well. The writer knows what he's doing, although there are a couple of problems I have with some of the English. Every once in a while, it kind of seems like they need a little bit of an editor, but not heavy editing, just light editing, because most of it is fine. Just every once in a while, there's like, wait a minute, that there's missing a period, or this phrase is a little bit wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like English was not their first language.
Yeah, apparently not.
Yeah, but it is still well done. I don't want to say that you're not going to be able to read it because the English is fucked up. No, not at all. It's just every once in a while you notice a little bit of an odd word choice or odd grammatical phrasing. But I thought it was very well done, and I actually quite liked it.
Yeah, and about the coloring, I noticed that, this colorist really gets how you can use color to unify things on a page.
Yeah.
He's not just kind of, coloring this panel this way and the next panel a different way. Most of the pages, all the panels have kind of a similar hue to them that brings it together. And if they don't, it's for a reason.
Yeah.
Like on that very first page, that one panel in the middle with like the eyes of the werewolf is red and the other panels are a different color. And so it kind of emphasizes that red panel.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was very impressed. And they're doing an Indiegogo campaign now.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. How's that coming? Or
I did not look at it, but let's take a look. They've blown past their goal, 157% of their goal.
Oh, that's actually very good. I would expect that they would make that because it is actually quite well done.
Yeah, their goal was 2,000, and as we're recording, they're at 3,145 with 11 days left.
Yeah, no, very good. Well done. But yeah, the thing about a story like this, not quite a story like this, how should I phrase it? The thing about the way they've told the story in the beginning, the way they've set it up, the way they've paced it, the way they've handled all of it, gives me confidence that they'll be able to bring this story home. They'll know when to end it, and they won't just start throwing in weird nonsense. That they have a plan. It gives me confidence that they have a plan. So I feel comfortable kind of just letting them introduce whatever they're going to introduce and me kind of following them. They've earned my trust. They earned it very, very quickly, which is surprising. But yeah, I'm totally on board with this one.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Yeah, at the end of an issue, I was like, oh, this is feeling good. I want to know what happens next. So
yeah, there is a lot of that. And although it is a little bit violent and there's a bit of a nudity, I don't feel that it was so gratuitous as to be fetishistic in nature. It is what it is, but it's not. It's not one of the. It's not like I don't know what to say, a porn comic or something that is so gory that it would turn off a lot of people. But I mean, you're dealing with werewolves and assassins. You have a little bit of blood. Oh, and at one point, zombies do appear. So.
Oh yeah, there are some zombies too. Something for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, very short review, but
well, that happens when the comic is good.
Yeah. This one is quite good.
Okay, and next up we have a comic called The Five of Us. It all starts here. Artwork by Bangkit Myarso and Arief Reza Erlangga. Sorry, folks, I'm not pronouncing your names very well. Concept art by Dreadink, and writer and storyline by Sean Conway, who sent this to us. This is basically a superhero origin story. The main characters are these young African American guys who, through a series of circumstances, end up coming into possession of some strange glowing rings. And if it's kind of like it can't just be anyone, supposedly, like the right person has to put the ring on and then they will get these powers and this kind of Power Rangers type of suit, kind of armor that has a computer presence in it that gives you instructions. And I mean, the concept was fine. But so it's a 59-page PDF. And as I got to, we always say we'll read at least 30 pages. As I got to about that point, I was thinking, wow, this is dragging. Because, we're still at the point where he's kind of, it devotes 8 pages to just kind of, I've got these powers and I can do this now. And so computer, tell me what else I can do. I can do this. And okay, I'll try this out. Run. Oh, wow, I can run up a wall. What else can I do? Well, you can do this. And, that we're finding out his abilities, but that's not a story. The story has ground to a halt while we're just sort of, investigating what he can do. And then there are some more pages after that where he's showing his friends what the powers can do. I was thinking, if I'm not much of a DC reader, but I've read, a lot of Marvel comics in my life. And, in a first issue of a Marvel story with a new hero, generally, as I'm recalling them anyway, the hero will be figuring out their powers while they're actually fighting someone or, in some kind of dangerous situation. And so, there's a story happening while they're saying, oh, wow, I can do this. I didn't know that. And, of course, it'll turn around in a lot fewer pages than this. So, I felt like it really needed to be tightened up to, get across to us what they can do, or at least, the beginnings of an explanation, and then explain more as we kind of get into some conflict. And the last 2 pages, we find out that, and I did read the whole thing, yes. Well, I actually kind of skimmed some of it after page 30, but at the last 2 pages, we find out that someone has been monitoring, this ring has gone live, and somebody else got another ring, and that one's gone live, and we need to track these rings down and get them back. Well, I was like, there's your story, and it would have been a lot better to introduce that much earlier and have them figuring out their powers while they're dealing with these guys trying to get the rings back.
Yeah, It seemed to me that there was a lot of tropes borrowed from other things, but not a lot of thought as to what they mean or why they're being used in those other things. So here, it just seems like you can see the seams a little bit too clearly, and sometimes the pieces don't fit. And
I noticed that in the dialogue, too.
Yeah, there is a lot of that in the dialogue. Some of the ebonics that they try to use in the beginning were a little bit comical. But I should say again, this comic is not written by a native English speaker, it seems. And there are lots of typos, lots of drop periods.
Yeah, the punctuation is so, there's so little of it that it feels kind of monotone when you're reading it. And yes, there's lots of typos, misspellings, things that look like, this is how I heard it, but I'm not sure how to spell it.
Well, there's not only that, but there are, like in one word balloon, there'd be 2 sentences together, but no period in between them. So it just kind of runs ragged and have to read it twice to kind of parse it, and that really is unfortunate. It seems that this comic needed a top level editor.
Mm-hmm.
I should say top level. I should say someone with a lot of strength to just say, no, this bit at the last pages, they should come in as soon as someone puts on the ring. Not like, hey, let's play basketball with our power suits. That's kind of ridiculous shit. And what I kind of felt was that the story kind of runs parallel to video games and manga. There's a lot of manga influence here, obviously with the power suits that look like Power Rangers, and also a lot of the panel breakups, the way the panels are kind of at diagonal slants, is kind of a like 80s or 90s manga style. But anyway, the artwork doesn't look that bad. It does look a little bit sterile at times, where the dimensions of the room are clearly defined, but it doesn't look lived in.
Yeah, I had the same thought. There's not enough furniture.
Well, sometimes furniture, sometimes just dirt on the walls. If these are in New York, I don't know why I assume New York. I don't think they actually said it, but if they're in a major city, cities have dirt. Right? I think that's a defining feature of most cities. Although I understand Toronto is pretty clean. I understand that they don't throw garbage on the ground. But anyway, that aside, it seemed a little bit. They seemed to not quite understand what it was that they were. I don't know what to say. So, for example, we have an inner city young man, presumably high school or first year university, black man wearing a brown turtleneck. And man, he would be made fun of in such severe ways for doing that. And so some of that I just don't buy it. It seems to be somewhat poorly researched, and the writing seems to be just kind of all over the place as far as dialogue goes, and the story itself seems to have no point until the last couple of pages. But yeah, after let's see, for me, I read until page, until the first guy got his suit. So that's just around page 30. And then I saw that, okay, there's an AI, and okay, he's got some sort of grip strength meter and stuff like that. And I was beginning to think, okay, 30 pages in, he's just learning that these rings have powers. And it just kind of seems, if this were a 200-page manga, maybe you could do it at this pace. It's still a little bit slow, but there's no point for the slowness. It's just kind of...
Well, I mean, it feels like, real time, basically, where, in a story, things tend, in a comic, usually things are much more condensed because you have a page limit or whatever, and to keep the reader's interest, where, this feels like, we're actually getting every minute of the story. Yeah,
that's exactly it. It's not interesting. There's no reason for it. This is not 24. So... yeah, just, move it along, chop some of this shit out. And actually, there may be a fine comic in here, but it needs a lot of editing. And at this stage, to edit as heavily as this comic needs, you'd be throwing out a lot of artwork and a lot of pages and rearranging a lot of stuff. Actually, those last two pages, if you were to just move them up to page 25, it might actually help the story a lot. Just by adding that bit there, the story starts.
Yeah, and then some kind of follow-up a little later. They're getting closer to finding, I think his name is Will, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, I mean, what it is, structurally, it's the Alfred Hitchcock dynamite in the room bit. You know that?
I think it's ringing a bell. I can't quite remember the exact wording.
I might have mentioned it a couple of years ago on the podcast, but basically, a man walks into a room and it blows up. You're surprised, but you don't have any feeling about it. There's no tension there. But if you see another man place the dynamite in the room, and then the protagonist is walking to the room, as he walks there, the audience is on edge. They know that something bad is going to happen if he walks into that room. And as he gets closer, it ratchets up the tension. So here, the dynamite being those last 2 pages, coming in at page 24 would suddenly set a timer on a problem that's going to come later. And so by the time the first confrontation comes, I'm assuming that there's another powered suit that will come in and start to fight these guys. And they'll have to team up and form Blazing Sword and chop the guy in half. But as we get closer to that scene, the tension should get higher and higher because we know they're being watched. We know that something is coming, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
So that's it. Structurally, it has problems. Stylistically, it has problems. The artwork is nice, though.
The figures, the characters look nice.
Yeah. The backgrounds need a lot of work. If you're going to do manga style, hit those backgrounds hard. Yeah. Buy a background bank if you need one, but just drawing in the basic lines, not quite enough.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to mention, some of the pages are really dialogue heavy. I'm looking at page 48, and there are just so many word balloons. And in the middle, there's this one huge word balloon. And sometimes, they can't fit it all in, so they take the point size down. And then I had to zoom into the PDF to be able to read it. The lettering should basically all be the same size, except for, like larger exclamations or sound effects or something. But yeah, don't shrink your point size just to fit all the dialogue in. If it's like that, then you need to reduce the amount of dialogue.
Or increase the number of pages if the dialogue is that important.
Yeah.
Actually, one other thing about it, there's a lot of empty space, negative space in the panels. Mm-hmm. It's not used because they've decided to keep the negative space and put the dialogue over the characters, and in some cases over objects that they're talking about in the dialogue.
Yeah.
I saw that a couple times, and that is the worst thing to do. I've never seen it so bad, where he says, "Hey, let's talk about this box," but the dialogue balloon is covering the box. Why? And especially when there's like negative space just adjacent to that in the same panel. It's not being utilized for dialogue or anything. It's just there. Hey, we need this empty space. This box, not so important. So that kind of stuff, really, just stop. Sorry, just knock that off. But still, this comic, maybe no. But future comics, maybe yes. Keep working on it. The artwork is fine, if not for the backgrounds. And the writer will improve his storytelling stuff as he progresses through other stories. But this one needs a lot of work to salvage.
Yeah, there are some encouraging pieces here, but it does need a lot of work.
Yeah.
Okay, so of course both of the comics we talked about will be linked from the show notes, and if you'd like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. So Mulele, go pack.
Thank you. I will.
So till next time, this is Tim.
And Mulele.
And thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.